Welcome to Brewers Daily, your daily deep dive into everything Milwaukee Brewers, our favorite team. I am your host, Dave Gasper. Lots to get to on the show today, as we saw an article come out here from The Athletic regarding the Milwaukee Brewers, and of course, Freddy Peralta. Who else? Who else would it be about? When it's The Athletic, when we're talking Brewers, it's going to be Freddy Peralta. And could he get traded? And who could he get traded to? What big market team can we trade Freddy Peralta to? And what can they send back in order to get him? Because the Brewers aren't going to be able to afford Freddy Peralta on a long-term extension. He's heading into his last year of team control. So let's trade him. Now, granted, the Brewers kind of have a track record of doing stuff like this, so it makes sense. Whether we like it or not, this is going to be the top storyline for the Brewers this offseason. What do they end up doing with Freddy Peralta? Now that we know Brandon Woodruff is back in the fold, what do they do with Freddy? Does he stay? Does he go? Matt Arnold saying that he thinks he's going to stay. Mark Attanasio says he thinks he's going to stay. Will that stop the rumor mill? No, of course not. You knew it wouldn't. So here we are, and we've got to dissect this and look into these trade proposals, because Jim Bowden over at The Athletic put these 5 trade ideas out there today, and take Jim Bowden for what you will, and the work that he puts out there. He is a former GM. He does have it up at The Athletic, so I want to kind of dig into some of those trade ideas a little bit here, and if they would make sense for the Brewers. Now, the first one would put Freddy Peralta in Atlanta, getting J.R. Ritchie and Alex Lodice in return. J.R. Ritchie, 22 years old, starting pitcher. He's made it to AAA. He's someone who's basically big league ready type starting pitcher. He would fit right into the mix of your Chad Patricks and your Carlos Rodriguez's and your Tobias Myers, Robert Gassers, and Logan Hendersons of the world that the Brewers have. He would just be another one to really kind of add to the mix. And, a lot of great stuff to like. I mean, he'd be a type of player that the Brewers would target, and he would provide a little bit of redundancy there. And then also, so J.R. Ritchie, and then shortstop Alex Lodice. And Lodice was the Braves' second-round pick this past year. So he's down in the lower levels of the minors. No thanks. I'll pass, and I think the Brewers are going to pass on that as well, because they're not looking to trade Freddy Peralta for some guy who was just drafted out of college this past July. They're looking for someone that's big league ready right now. They don't need a shortstop down at AA, because Jim Bowden looks at this and he writes in here that the Brewers are looking for some shortstop help. We'll get into that a little bit later on here in the show as well, but shortstop, yeah, maybe you need it at the big league level because Joey Ortiz struggled, but getting a guy for A-ball, AA, the Brewers don't really need shortstop help down there. So we'll pass on that offer for the Atlanta Braves. No thanks. Next one, Boston Red Sox, because we got to get Freddy Peralta to Boston. We've talked about that a little bit before on previous shows here on Brewers Daily. And his proposed trade return for Freddie is left-handed pitcher Peyton Toll and right-handed pitcher Anthony Ianson. And this is a little bit better. It's 2 pitchers rather than a pitcher and a position player, which the Brewers' previous trades of their starting pitchers kind of have looked more like. I do like it a little bit better because, Peyton Toll, big league ready, left-handed starting pitcher, so he can add to that mix, because right now the lefties that the Brewers have among their starting mix is Robert Gasser, Aaron Ashby, and D.L. Hall. Ashby and Hall have been dominant out of the bullpen. Can they make the transition to starting? Who knows? They've been at the big league level for a couple of years now. We still aren't quite sure what they're going to be able to do there. Peyton Toll may be a surer bet to start as the levels go along here. Ianson, again, a more recent draft pick, a little bit further down in the minor league system, just getting drafted this year in the 3rd round. So he's further away. He didn't even pitch in the minor leagues at all this year after getting drafted. So I'm going to guess the Brewers pass on that as well, because again, if they're going to be moving Freddie, you're probably looking for 2 big league ready guys in return. So I'm going to pass on the Boston Red Sox offer. Next up, we got my actual, I think, favorite offer from this article here from Jim Bowden. The New York Mets, actually. Not that I necessarily love sending Freddy Peralta to New York, but David Stearns is over there. David Stearns, obviously, going to be a pretty big fan of Freddy Peralta. And the proposed return here is right-handed pitcher Brandon Sproat and infielder, outfielder Luis Angel Acuna. So that's Ronald Acuna's little brother. But Sproat reached the big leagues this year, one of the top pitching prospects that the Mets have. Got really good stuff, upper 90s fastball, really good sweeper. So still got some stuff to work on, but the Brewers probably could turn him into a dynamite type starter. Has some really good potential. Luis Angel Acuna, that's a big league ready player. He can play second base, shortstop. He can play, kind of all around a little bit there. And the Brewers potentially looking at shortstop for some competition for Joey Ortiz. He can also maybe do some outfield work as well. The Brewers do love versatility. Acuna does have speed, being able to hit for average the way that he does. I think that's something that the Brewers would very strongly consider because he's going to have a full complement of team control, which is going to be very important for the Brewers. He can play the position that they're looking for, but he also wouldn't necessarily be the one blocking Jesus Made or Cooper Pratt or whoever their young stud prospect at shortstop is going to be coming up. So you got a guy who can fit into your rotation pretty much right away. You got a guy that can fit into your infield or potentially your outfield right away, and at the very least would be a pretty solid upgrade over Andrew Monasterio and Anthony Siegler at your utility infield spot. I think that would make a ton of sense for the Brewers. If that ends up getting offered by the Mets, Brandon Sproat and Luis Angel Acuna, that's something that I think I'd very strongly consider if I were Matt Arnold. So that's a one that's pretty solid, maybe even a yes, I think. The New York Yankees here. Another New York team, of course. Right-handed pitcher Will Warren and shortstop Jose Caballero is a suggested return from Jim Bowden. Caballero has been in the league last couple of years, so you're not getting a full season of team control or full complement of team control over 6 years. He's already got a few years in. Will Warren, okay. Maybe mid back end rotation arm. Probably would be in the Brewers rotation, probably more of the back end in terms of where he'd fit in. I mean, Caballero can be maybe a shorter term stopgap at shortstop. So if the Brewers can only get a guy, if they're not able to get two players with a full complement of team control, then maybe something where it comes with Caballero would be a little bit more acceptable because that's kind of a one year or couple years stopgap that, again, they can move him out if they need to once the young prospects come up. But I don't think that's going to be enough to entice the Brewers getting a 29-year-old Jose Caballero. So I don't think that's going to end up being enough. And then the San Francisco Giants are the last team here on Jim Bowden's article. Proposed return, right-handed pitcher Landon Roop and shortstop Johnny Level. And this is one that I'm also not believing that this is going to work and not going to get it done for the Brewers. Landon Roop, he's 27. Had a pretty good season this year before he suffered a knee sprain and ended his season back in August. So that doesn't help, but pretty solid numbers, pretty good stuff. Still is controllable through 2030. So you still got 5 years of team control over Landon Roop. So that's a positive. But Johnny Level is 18 years old. And he's in the way lower levels of the minors. It's like, yeah, the Brewers, love shortstops, but they don't necessarily need to grab a shortstop that's 18 years old down in low A or the Arizona Complex League. They're looking for someone that can help the big league club right now and potentially be an upgrade over Joey Ortiz. So Johnny Level doesn't really do them any good because he'd be at best like the 4th or 5th best shortstop in the Brewers system if you get him in. So I don't think that would make a ton of sense if I were the Milwaukee Brewers. So really of those proposals, the one that sticks out to me is Brandon Sproat and Luis Angel Acuna. If that gets offered by the Mets, I think that's something where a deal really could get done for Freddy Peralta. So that'd be one I'd be willing to accept as a Brewers fan, and I think Brewers fans might actually be thrilled to see if they can get that move with. Once you get over the emotional aspect of actually trading away Freddy Peralta. But that just kind of also raises the question of, is shortstop the biggest need for the Brewers this offseason? Because, look, we've all had our frustrations with Joey Ortiz. Yes, he was very, very strong defensively, and the Brewers were thrilled with what they got from him defensively. Offensively, there were some struggles. There were quite a bit of struggles. The manager got pissed at him at one point, sat him down for a couple of days. Some of the at-bats were just extremely uncompetitive. Watching strikes down the middle, swinging at balls down in the dirt, just some really rough-looking ABs. I think there is something better in there offensively for Joey Ortiz. And, maybe the Brewers don't want to wait anymore for him, but you're going to have to wait a little bit until your prospects are ready, because Cooper Pratt won't be ready right away. Jesus Made is probably your future at the position, but he's not going to be ready in 2026. He's probably going to be ready at earliest 2027, provided everything goes well next season for him. So you got still kind of a year to go. Are the Brewers going to be patient enough to let Joey Ortiz go through another season of struggles? Will they just simply wait until Cooper Pratt is ready, just give him the time until mid-season? If he doesn't figure it out, then Cooper Pratt gets the chance. We'll see. But according to Bowden, he's written multiple times here that shortstop is an area that the Brewers are looking to upgrade. Problem is, there's really not much out there. I mean, we've talked about Bo Bichette before. Bo Bichette's going to be a no. He's going to cost too much money. Don't even bother getting your hopes up. But if you want to look elsewhere, maybe a trade for, one of these guys when you trade out Freddy Peralta, maybe that's something that you could get. And I think Luis Angel Acuna, he could be that shortstop, in the meantime, to provide that competition and that upgrade over someone like Joey Ortiz. But he's also versatile enough that he can play other positions, and when you do have your shortstop prospects come up, you can still move him around, and you can still get his bat in the lineup some way, and he can still be a productive player for you. Again, he's not as good as his brother Ronald, but still, he can be a very quality player for you and play kind of all around the field, and he fits the type of players that the Brewers have generally tended to target. So shortstop could be that spot where the Brewers make a move and bring in some competition for Ortiz. I don't think it's going to be a bona fide starter on a long-term deal, but a young player or a one-year stopgap, I think, is a very real possibility. Because, again, that one-year stopgap you may have to look at, because the Brewers do have a ton of shortstop prospects, and they're getting very close to the major leagues. Cooper Pratt's likely going to start next year in AAA after spending all of this past season in AA. You got Jesus Made and Luis Pena. Made is probably going to start in AA. Pena might start in AA, but also a very good chance he starts back in High A, Wisconsin. He kind of struggled upon his promotion there a little bit. So you've got your top three prospects in the entire organization at shortstop. All three of them can play shortstop. And one in AAA, one in AA, one in High A. I mean, you got them lined up all in a row. They're going to be coming up here soon. So you have the shortstop prospect depth. You got some others coming in behind them. So I don't think that's a spot where you necessarily need to go out and get a Bo Bichette on a 6 or 7 year deal, or where you need to find some true long-term solution out on the market and trade Freddy Peralta for one. You can get just kind of a 1 year stopgap if you want to upgrade over Ortiz, or you just simply let it ride with Ortiz and wait until your prospects are ready. I think that ends up being the more likely scenario, because there's not much for shortstops out there, and if teams have one, they generally tend to not give them up. Generally. So, yeah, it's going to be tougher to find one out there unless someone else, again, has just a whole bunch of players backed up at that position, and they want to move one away. That's how the Brewers got Joey Ortiz in the first place. They already had shortstop taken care of with all their other infield prospects coming up. Ortiz got squeezed out, so the Brewers ended up getting him. So you got a pretty good future coming in here at shortstop. So that's the important news there. And then just kind of some other news, or basically no news, that I want to just kind of bring up here, is that we haven't really heard anything on coaching replacements yet, or finalizing the coaching staff. Now, we know Connor Dawson has left the hitting coaching staff. He has gone to Kansas City, and he's going to be coaching there. So the Brewers had 3 hitting coaches this past season. Now they're down to 2. It remains to be seen if they're going to bring someone up and hire someone to be that third hitting coach again, or if they're simply just going to roll with the two hitting coaches, Alabuff as lead there, and Eric Tyson as the other hitting coach. Remains to be seen if they're going to backfill that. And also, Ricky Weeks has left the bench as associate manager, and he's going back into the front office. And while the Brewers have said that they're not going to backfill the position of associate manager, you also kind of currently don't have a bench coach, because Ricky Weeks essentially was the bench coach. You didn't have anyone named as that spot. So I wonder if anyone is going to be moved into that official bench coach type role. But we haven't seen any news on that yet. Perhaps that'll be coming here soon, as everyone's getting their coaching staffs finalized during this kind of early part of the offseason here. That's been a priority. So we haven't seen any news on those fronts yet, but that is something to just kind of keep in mind. Will the Brewers potentially bring up another hitting coach? Are they going to move someone from their current staff over to the bench coach role, maybe a Matt Erickson type guy, and just kind of shuffle some titles around, or bring someone else back up? So we haven't seen anything on that yet, but that could be coming soon here, I would imagine, if we're going to see anything at all. They could just simply let the two coaches move on and not backfill those spots on the coaching staff at all. But the way MLB is trending is the more coaches, the better, and having more guys on that staff to help out, that seems to really be the trend. So I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in or at least promote someone else and move some things around to fill those roles. So we shall see. And once those things happen, we'll talk about them here on Brewers Daily, as we're with you every single day here, giving you coverage and analysis of everything the Milwaukee Brewers are doing, what they could do as this offseason rolls along, as this 97-win team looks to get even better and finally get themselves back to a World Series and hopefully win one of these years as well. So that'll do it for this episode. Be sure to hit that subscribe button as well and get notified every single time a new episode drops. And thank you for listening. This has been Brewers Daily.